else. In other words, a very small kind of like, action can create huge changes somewhere else. When it gets accumulated, on top of things, that's just sort of the idea of the butterfly effect. And it does come from chaos theory. Chaos theory comes out of studying very complex dynamic natural systems, like the moving of air, like climate, right? Really complex systems that seem like so random, so unpredictable. There's so many sort of factors that can determine what goes on, right? And so if somebody owes you a $0.506127, and this person decided to pay you back $0.506, would you be very upset?
Yes.
Yes? Who are you? Okay, you need to ship. Okay, so the conventional wisdom was like, oh, that shouldn't make much of a difference, right? We don't even calculate with these decimal points, because it's like, it's nonsense. Well, what happened was that by accident, a sort of meteorologist, a person who studies climate, discovered that tiny little differences like this can produce huge results in the computer program. So what makes it possible for us is these big computers can calculate and calculate and calculate forever and ever and ever. It really, what it does, it sort of gives us So, with the help of computers, we got super eyes now. We could see things we couldn't before. We could see now that little differences like this, when it gets compounded and iterated or calculated over and over again, can create huge differences. And hence the butterfly effect. Yeah? So this is the chaos theory. This is Mandelbrot, who recently passed away, a very gifted mathematician who saw numbers as colors. And he held the higher score in some entrance exam in England somewhere because he saw them in colors. I don't know how that works. But he, again, with the help of computers, he was able to put chaos in a picture, in a graphic form, the theory of chaos. And he called that fractal geometry. Fractal geometry. Mm-hmm. That's it. So actually that's called a Mandelbrot set when you look at it before because it was invented by, discovered by him. And here's a closer look at that Mandelbrot set. What's really amazing is that, as you noticed probably before, you see how the boundary, like between the dark area and the light area, is really kind of complex, right? And when you look close, it's really amazing things that happens at the boundary here. And I'm boxing it here. I'm going to zoom in. And you see the little Mandelbrots showing up again, don't you? Really interesting. So again, chaos seems to have this pattern. It's a very simple way of looking at it. So chaos seems that things are seemingly random. If you look at it from a very different perspective, it seems to have order. There's chaos in order, there's order in chaos. In fact, when we first started making a pacemaker, we assumed that should be regular. Heartbeat should be regular, right? We made it really regular when the patient got sick. We recognized that we have to actually model in, create in, sort of like randomness in it, or the patient gets sick. So here's an example of a fractal. Actually, I saw this in the farmer's market a couple of years ago, and I bought a whole bunch of them. It was so good. So the whole idea of fractals, and we're able to see that, so the thing about fractals is self-similar. What that really means is that if you take a little chunk of this cabbage, it will give you the picture of the whole. Can you see that? Right? And here again, this is actually a river system in Shanghai. It's a satellite picture. So river patterns created by running water, right? Rain falls down, gets in the ground, cuts rivers, and that's a completely random process, right? But if you get up really, really high above and you look down, it's got a pattern to it, isn't it? And it is self-similar. What that means, if you look at, just focus on the chunk of this, can you see this similar like this? The same sort of pattern seems to recur, sort of like all at different scales. The pattern is the same. Here's a Florida coastline. Once again, coastline, totally random, river coming here, waves washing to it. But again, if you look at a very high perspective, again, you see a fractal pattern. That's Bryce Canyon, by the way. You see the self-similar quality in this? Can you see this whole thing is like this? Can you see that? So, another fractal. Another fractal. This is how DNA is packed inside our cell. A fractal folding. Now we're beginning to understand nature at all scales is fractal. The galaxy is fractal. We've always suspected that. It should be at quantum level, should always be fractal, but we haven't always been able to see it. So this is what discovered just recently actually in a semiconductor. So what we do is we take a metal that's not, something that's not a conductor, we do things to it to make it a conductor. So in that transition, the electrons create a fractal pattern. So we see now, even at the quantum level, nature is fractal. And people took a transition of the electrons going from a non-conductor to a conductor. They plotted it using Vanderbilt equations, and look what we got. Vanderbilt there. And here again, it's not idle talk, it's applied all across the field. It's how we distinguish now living by benign tumors using fractal geometry. We all know about big files, zipping and unzipping big files is made possible by fractal geometry. Remember the old cell phones with the antenna? And the new ones, they don't have them anymore? It's not because they don't need them anymore, it's because they're using fractal. The antenna is actually a fractal antenna now. So it's possible to make it so small to be inside the cell phone. And it's applied in aerodynamics, and aerospace engineering, all across the board. And ecologists recently went to a rainforest. They took one tree down, cut the tree down, cut it in all the pieces, and measure all the different sort of quantities they could think of, and plot it against, create a fractal geometry equation, and that equation describes the entire forest. So, self-similar. The truth of the forest is in the truth of the individual tree. If that is the case, if you were to change this cabbage, how are you going to change it? You change the individual, the chunk. Does that make sense? In that way, people say, I'm just one person. That's the only way we can change, is changing that one person. Because nature is self-similar. Here's our brain. Our brain is a quantum brain. We've been working on almost a couple of decades now trying to create a quantum computer. Right? Remember, electron can be two places at the same time. Like computers go 0 and 1 bits, right? A quantum computer, one thing can be both 0 and 1 at the same time. I've been working on this forever, and we haven't been able to. Obviously, we don't have a quantum computer. But your brain is one. And we've recently discovered we have mirror neurons. What's that? What is that? It's like, for instance, if I'm going to hit you. No, I'm going to strike my arm out like this, and the neurons in my head fire say, oh, I'm doing this, right? If I look at you do this, that same neuron fire up in my brain. So, by seeing something happen, it actually, something in my brain fires off as if I am doing it. Right? So that actually been, so the baby was not given any written instructions. It was just, so if people actually said that was really important, that's what allowed human beings to develop so quickly, because we are actually learning experientially. Does that make sense? When you try to learn to do something, your brain is firing off, your brain, you're actually experiencing it in your brain. Yeah? And other mirror neurons about touch. So if you see someone else being touched, that neuron in our head also fire off as we're being touched. Oh, that's kind of freaky. Oh, don't worry. You do have a feedback system in your skin. So fortunately, there's nerves in your skin that don't worry, it's not really you. That is not you. So what happens when you lose your arm? You won't know the difference. If you see someone being touched in that arm that you don't have anymore, you don't have that skin to feedback anymore, you will not know the difference. In fact, all of you have heard of phantom pain, yes? So this is actually how people treat phantom pain, because the person can watch someone else being massaged in the arm and he feels relief. Amazing. Shift from that. Guess what? There's no me. So back to the same picture, but now I have different things in there. I like chicken pox, no. Okay, so just like, there's all these different environmental problems as a common cause of lifestyle, like why is it we want all this stuff anyway, right? Why do we want that car and that guy or that girl and that house? Maybe we are longing for something, one single thing, and maybe we're all longing to be connected and to be loved. Everybody recognize him? Newton, right? Father of modern science, yes? Absolutely changed our life, absolutely contributed a lot to our society. Well, his mathematics has shown him there's no such thing as absolute space. And he looked at that. Heck, that cannot be. God will not create a world without absolute space. So he didn't accept that. So he stopped right there. It had to wait for Einstein to come along, who said, that's okay, I can take that. Some time and space now is absolute. Let's just roll with that and see what happens. And he did, he rode with it, until he discovered that at a fundamental level, that the world is actually random. He said, God doesn't play dice. So he spent the second half of his career trying to prove himself wrong. So he stopped it. Remember when the earth was still flat? How many of you were alive? Don't raise your hand. So now we have the technology. We know the earth is flat. We can kind of see that. Technology allows us to see that and experience that. And we know that the earth is only a part of this big solar system. But I ask you this. If we still believe the earth is flat, can we visualize a solar system like this? Absolutely not. And if not that, can you ever see the galaxy? Or a universe full of galaxies? I want you to sit with this. Just the framing of our reality, the framing of our world, that the world is flat, would have prevented us from all of this. If just lifting, just changing our way of seeing the world from flat to round gave us a whole universe full of black holes. Imagine what is possible if we take in what we just looked at today.